Hey guys, welcome to the Levels of Wrestling Lowdown. This is our second installment. Tonight we're going to be covering a lot of topics. Quite a few given to us from Twitter, so if you guys are listening, be sure to check it out. Um, Tonight we're going to have the usual patrons in. We've got Mr. Monday Night Raw, Skeletor. We're going to talk a bit more about his experience being at Raw. We've got Chris Lamb with us again, who's going to be great. Paul will be joining us in a bit. And unfortunately, our 10-foot super soldier, Rensis, is at a training day today. So hopefully, if he gets a chance, he'll drop by. But first off, let's just go with the obvious question, guys. Chris, what did you think of Raw last night? Just in, short, would you give it a rating of a Bret Hart, or would you give it like a Shawn Michaels WrestleMania moment?
I've got to give it a Bret Hart 4 out of 10 because, yeah, we'll get into that in a second.
So it wasn't to your expectations, so to say.
Not considering it's a go-home show for a pay-per-view, no.
So glad you said go home show. We'll hit on that in a second. Skeletor, what did you think? You were there live.
Yeah.
Have you seen TV footage, or did you think it was better live?
They didn't hook up the audio as well as they did the last time I went. It was hard to hear people in places. However, a lot of it got like the whole Rusev, Zeb Coulter segment thing was incredible live because people were losing their minds. Screaming USA, We the People, all that stuff. Like that was the best segment of the show, and I don't know. I'd probably give it like 6.5, 7. Like it was a decent Raw. It just didn't like move much. Like it didn't. I kind of expected one big new thing to happen, and they had 0 new big things.
No, I completely agree. Just quickly, I'm going to hit on this one topic straight away, and this is going to be all we're going to say about this all night. Sting happened. We told you so. 186% correct. Do not expect more. Do not expect less. Sting shows up, and you got the best they could give you just now, so don't complain. But as in with Raw, I'm going to give Raw 6 out of 10 at most. It wasn't great, but as Chris said, for a go-home show, it was fairly bad. And I'm minding my language tonight after our we'll call it an explicit pre-show yesterday. So, Chris, what did you think the highlight of Raw was last night? Obviously, Skeletor was saying it was Rusev Swagger for him.
I'm not saying, but all I can say quickly before that is one thing I would like to say. As Paul Heyman would say, we told you so. We said Sting wasn't going to be there. We told you so. And everyone decided to boo anyway. In terms of the best segment, I have to be honest, I didn't pay attention much in Raw. I can't even remember it. It was the only thing I can really remember was Jericho Wyatt, and I was thinking the only thing I remember about that was why were the fans booing Wyatt? But
Great point. We'll cover that in a second. Skeletor, you said that Swagger and Rusev was a great moment. Was there anything else that really stood out for you, or was that just like the main thing on that episode of Raw?
It's weird to hear like a crowd when you're in it and then hear it on TV because it's very different sounding because people who got like the biggest reactions on the show were Chris Jericho, John Cena, and Swagger / Coulter. Those guys were like the pops of the night, and to a lesser extent Ric Flair. It stood out. I did my best not to know anything about Raw, so it was cool when Ric Flair showed up. I didn't know Ric Flair was going to show up. Because, my greatest wrestler of all time, so that was a big moment. I've never seen Chris Jericho live before, which is cool to me.
Yeah. I think one of the things that obviously Chris and myself were just discussing is that, big stars, when they come on, they need to build them up slightly, but then still have the chance of a shock reaction. I think Ric Flair probably would have got a much bigger pop had they not announced him being there. Like, they could have suggested that the Madison Square Garden was just a one-off. But he's still got a fairly big pop, like you said. Obviously, one of the closer ones for the pop of the night.
I forgot Roman Reigns was also up there. Those were the
Oh.
Roman Reigns got some big reactions.
And do you know what? Do you know who surprised me getting a big reaction was Sheamus. Sheamus got a hell of a pop last night when he came out. Um, it's one of these things that's quite surprising because obviously Sheamus is a hard-working guy, and a lot of people refer to him as mid-card Cena, which I think is a bit wrong. But opinions are opinions, and everyone's entitled to them. But you're wrong. So, Chris, what do you think to the whole idea of Sheamus teasing the merger of the IC and US title?
I think it's a great gimmick to go with and saying, oh yeah, Sheamus is going to make it happen. I pray to God it doesn't, because if it does, what's going to happen is we all know if Lesnar comes back, Lesnar's probably going to walk away with the WWE World Heavyweight title. Another issue I'm going to get into later on. It's what kind of... But if they merge those two titles, you've then got one title which relies on more storytelling aspects, which, as last night's Raw proved, they aren't really great at doing that right now. The fact is that they can't really tell stories without having a title in them. So I feel if they merge those two titles, you're then saying, well, you have one title that you're never going to see, and you have one title that, well, we can build everything else around. Other than that, you've got pretty much nothing except number one contendership.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. Obviously, there's a big issue at the minute with building mid-card stories. But I really enjoyed the fact that Raw last night was kind of an IC title heavy show. Every match that went on, like, other than the main event and the tag match and Divas match, was all for the IC title. And it's really good that they're giving some focus to that. So, Skeletor, what do you think on the option of a merger for the two titles? Do you think it's good, or do you think it's a negative thing for the company?
Yeah, I don't think it's a good. We just merged the world titles like 8 months ago. I think it's good to have two mid-card belts at least for singles guys because WCW back in the day had the U.S. title, which you would build stories around, and then the TV title, where good workers just beat the hell out of each other like every couple of weeks. So if you just let the U.S. title be the good workers murder each other for it title, and the IC title have stories, then the mid card works out well. And I was surprised during the show when one of the camera guys pulled out like this stupid Pepsi decorative table, like huge Pepsi logo, and slammed it down the ground and then threw a purple blanket over it and dropped the IC belt on it. Because that happened like mid-show. Like that was not already set up.
Wow. So, I mean, there you go then. That's a bit of a backstage spoiler there by Skeletor. Heel for Hire on Twitter asks what I think about the merger. I think the merger is not a bad idea. It could work, but on the provisions that WWE looks back at what they did when Vince Russo was around. You need to give guys storylines, every single one of them. Whether they're in there for 2 or 3 minutes, or whether they're in there for 5 months, they need to be involved in a storyline. Even guys like Val Venus and Rikishi used to have feuds together. Look back at Fully Loaded 2000, and that is one of the, personally, I think that's a great example of what a mid-card B show should be. They had some great matches in there. I mean, you had the Rikishi Val Venus cage match, which, had the big spot with Rikishi. If you haven't seen it, go look it out. I'm not going to spoil it for you. But if they're going to merge the titles, I think it's a good idea. In theory, it means less championship matches and more chance of, not diluting the title down, so to say. So, Skeletor, do you think there's a risk of diluting it if that happened, or is it just a case of, there'll be one title so less guys can go for it?
I think we have a very full mid-card right now, and there's just too many guys to only have the tag title and the IC belt, because we have a very thin main event right now of like 6 dudes. The only guys who are true main event guys right now are John Cena, Randy Orton, I guess Kane, Roman Reigns, I guess. And now, like, it's very weird. Now that Daniel Bryan's gone and CM Punk's gone, the main event is very slim. So it's a very good thing that they put the titles together in December, the main titles, because there would be nobody for the World Heavyweight Championship right now.
You know, I completely agree. I think there's too little in the way of main event guys and too many in the way of mid-card guys. Chris, what do you think? Do you think having the titles unified would risk the idea of too little guys going for the titles, or do you think it would make the lower mid-card guys look worthless?
I think it depends entirely on how they do it, because I mean, obviously, something that I've been saying for years is, you have a guy like Cena go for the US or IC title, all of a sudden that title looks like a big thing again.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. You have a main eventer go for a mid-card title, but then you run the risk of people saying, well, why is the main event guy going for the mid-card title? He's burying people. That's not the case. It's helping to elevate the title. So I kind of agree with what you're saying. It'd be a good idea. For me, one of the topics that was mentioned there is the idea that we have too few in the way of main event guys. Having too few in the way of main event guys can either hinder the company or it can really create a star. Right now we're seeing, guys like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, and Bray Wyatt to some extent all being pushed towards the main event. But one of the questions we were sent in was, why do you think they didn't pull the trigger on Cesaro's babyface push after WrestleMania? And that came from I'm Quite Good on Twitter. So why do you think his main event push was halted, guys? Chris, what do you think?
There was actually something stated about that not long after Mania. I can't remember what the details of it were, but there was a reason for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a reason for this kind of thing. Maybe it was just the fact they didn't feel he was ready. Maybe it's what we were saying before, that he wasn't ready to voice himself as a babyface yet. And that's why they put him with Heyman so he can learn the mic skills. So maybe it's something along those lines. So purely for the fact that although we're 186% correct all the time, we can't confirm or deny any stories that go on just because of rumor. Skeletor, what do you think? Do you think Cesaro's babyface push halted for any particular reason, or do you think they have bigger plans for him in the long run?
I think there was a very limited amount of credible heels at the time, and you couldn't turn Cesaro face, or she would have virtually no credible heel mid-carders. And he is not ready to speak for himself, as I've seen multiple times. He's a talented guy, and he's one of the best in-ring workers they got. But I think they got to take it. I don't think he's a guy that can hot shot immediately. You can hot shot Roman Reigns just because he has the look and the crowds are super behind him. But Cesaro kind of got to build him. Let him, have some mid-card feuds. Let him give him the IC belt, this Sunday possibly. It's, there's way too many faces who are more credible than the heels right now. We just had two face guys mostly win a 2-on-3 handicap match against heels. Yeah. Until they DQ'd themselves.
So let me ask as well. Last night on TV, it came across that Cesaro, even though Heyman wasn't there, he kind of got quite a big heel reaction. Did that come across in the arena, or was that just on TV?
He got a decent reaction. People seemed confused that Heyman wasn't there. I heard multiple people asking the person next to them, "Where's the hell is Paul Heyman?" But yeah, he's building up. He's beating up on people people like Big E and Kofi. So he's building heel heat slowly, and people expect everyone they like to get hot shotted to the main event spot immediately. It just doesn't play like that.
Oh man, that's such a good point about the idea that people think your guy should be hot shotted straight away. The fact is, guys can't be hot shotted straight away because they're not ready a lot of the time. You might think they are as a fan, and you might think that, because you're a fan, you've got your right to push them as much as you want. That's great, but you need to remember first and foremost that WWE are a business. If they don't think that person is profitable, you can bet they're not getting a push straight away. So let me ask you this then. Right now, other than Roman Reigns, who is getting the push to the moon?
Uh,
Skeletor.
yeah, it's Roman Reigns is definitely getting pushed to the moon right now. He's in main event WWE title matches. Uh, Seth is getting that. Like Seth, all three members of the Shield are getting heavy duty pushes right now. Like more so than anybody else on the roster. They're like heavily featured in storylines, are virtually always in the main event or opening the show. Like those are the three guys that they see as the future. And Bray Wyatt, to a lesser extent, is getting a pretty significant push. Like there's like a 90% chance he's going to go over Jericho this Sunday. And if he doesn't, that just means the storyline's going on longer so that he can afterwards.
Yeah, I think I see Wyatt going over Jericho. I don't know if I see it going clean. That for the first match they're gonna have. If they really want to stretch it till SummerSlam, they need to try and either make it look like this match needs the gimmick, so that the SummerSlam match has the gimmick, or the one Jericho needs to win and make Wyatt snap, so that you get some kind of difference in character. You maybe see Wyatt get angry for a change, something we haven't seen yet. Chris, who do you think is getting that kind of the main push at the moment?
Well, you're talking about guys getting a main push, and I can't really talk about this obviously without mentioning Roman Reigns because the guy's being. I see him as the guy that Triple H really wants to see take over from Cena. Can't really argue there. He has to look for it. Doesn't necessarily have the in-ring skill. Ambrose is. It seems like Rollins is getting a push, but the fans don't seem to recognise that as much. Because, obviously Rollins is Mr. Money in the Bank. But you've got Ambrose, who seems to be the favourite out of the group. Out of that particular duo, I mean. Cesaro, Bad News Barrett actually is a guy I see getting a heavy duty push when he comes back. Because it seems like they were going that way before he got injured.
Yeah, I think Barrett's a good choice for a push, actually. From what we can tell, Vince is obviously very high on him. If not, he wouldn't have had the spot at the Hall of Fame ceremony. He also wouldn't have, kept this gimmick so long, considering it wasn't really getting over with people to begin with. But now that they've kind of pushed it and give it that slow burn, it's getting there. Let me ask you something, guys. It's not something we really talk about. Who do you think right now would benefit the most from a push and realistically survive to where they're pushed to? I don't mean like a Zack Ryder, here's a US title run for you, and then we're going to bury you. That's the right term of bury, by the way. I mean, like, who could succeed from a push? Like, we had Dolph Ziggler get pushed and eventually get the world title. So, how do you see it going, Skeletor?
Okay. I think, I think Bray could at any point in time just be a main event guy. He's got very strong ring work that's improving like daily, and he's like one of the best guys on the mic. Despite the fact that he desperately needs to start getting to the point and changing up how he speaks occasionally, because the reason he got boring chants at that show was because he was doing yammering, go around the point 12 times before hitting it promo he's been doing for the last year and a half.
Yeah, I think a lot of people right now are getting confused with Bray Wyatt promos because a lot of them do sound the same. But
Yeah,
you know what they say: if it's not broken, don't try to fix it.
yeah, well, true. I think it is starting to become broken. Like, like I participated in the boring chant on
Oh.
Bray Wyatt because
You're
that
one-
promo was incredibly uninteresting.
You were one of those bastards.
It was like the entire crowd. I think they like lowered at the vol. I couldn't hear myself think through the boring chants.
Wow.
It was bad.
You know, it wasn't his greatest promo, but I don't think it was, you know, I don't think it justifies a boring chant, considering we had Kali out there at one point and that got no reaction.
Yeah, it was that he was silence.
Yeah.
He was depressing silence.
Chris, what about you, man? What do you think? Who could value from a coach and actually succeed in staying there?
Well, first off, I've got my mate John listening, who says Kofi Kingston.
That's a good shout.
You know, with the edgy gimmick.
Upper mid card to lower main event, and I mean like the bottom end of the lower main event, I could see it happening.
Yeah, my issue there is Kofi Kingston. Honestly, I'm gonna have to say Ziggler, because in my eyes, Ziggler's only sticked because the company decided to let him. He's a guy that was very over. You hear him still get quite big pops in some places. I mean, you know, when he was World Heavyweight Champion, it was a very good program, and I honestly loved Ziggler's character at that point. I think that he's a guy that could be projected and could stay there. Bad News Barrett, again, a guy that could get pushed and could stay there. It's just a matter of whether the company will stick with them once they're in the right position.
Yeah, I think a lot of the choices right now are down to they are down to what's going on in the company. A lot of stuff affects it externally too, which a lot of people forget. For instance, with Daniel Bryan being out and CM Punk not being there anymore, like his contract is officially gone as of Thursday. Basically, a lot of people forget they need to have a viable base to the company. Now, the best example of that is often the guy they fall back on. But if they're going to create stars, like they're doing just now, I think this slow kind of build burn that we're getting is a really good thing. Like, that's why we can't keep being pushy and wanting our guys to be main event. Because a lot of the time, like I said, these guys, I don't want to mock them or put them down. It's not that they're not ready, it's just that they're not as primed as WWE want them to be. Like, a guy like Roman Reigns can be huge, given the right time. So I'm hoping the way they're going right now, and the way they're handling his push, is going to be successful. So do you think, Chris, that Roman Reigns is being pushed too fast, or do you think it's just right?
I feel like Reigns is a guy that it's not a matter of whether or not he's being pushed too fast, it's a matter of whether or not he's going to live up to the schedule. I honestly think he's being pushed at about the right pace, but it then becomes a simple matter of, is he going to be able to talk by the time that he is pushed? By the time he is main event status even?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Obviously, Roman Reigns does need to be able to talk if he's going to be, the guy that knocks Cena off his podium, so to say. If they're not going to have him do this, either give him a mouthpiece or let him be the silent badass.
But the question you then have is who becomes the mouthpiece, because the only decent mouthpiece at the moment is Paul Heyman, who only works with heels.
It's a very interesting point. So if anyone's listening and they can think of a good manager that would maybe go with Roman Reigns if he can't talk, then send it in and let us know. So what do you think, Skelsor? Do you think Roman Reigns is being too quick, too slow? Is it just right?
I wouldn't say he's getting pushed too fast, but there's this weird, like, I've been a little bit bothered that very recently he has to close every show on top, like, even when it stops making sense. Like, he'll get an RKO, roll out of the ring, like, something will happen for 30 seconds, and then he'll spear whoever's left, and then stands up at the end of the show. Like, it's always done for, like, a month and a half now, and it's hard to get, like, sympathy for a dude who never, ever, ever is an underdog in any situation.
Yeah, I think a lot of people talk about how Cena, although he's deemed as an underdog at times, he never appears an underdog, and
No.
I really hope they're not going to do the same thing with Roman Reigns.
Yeah, they try to do. See, the thing about John, I think, is a problem with the fact that he sells well in the moment. Like if you punch him, he'll fall down or whatever. But it always feels like once he gets to the end bit of a match, like he'll just stand up, pretend like nothing has happened in AAU, and it gives this impression like he was just messing with you the entire match until AA, STF, you tap out, whatever. It's it's this really weird thing that makes it feel like he's never ever actually an underdog. Especially since the fact that he beat like 6 months ago, I think he beat both real Americans in a handicap match by submission in like 6 minutes.
Yeah. Now, do you know what? Talking about 6 minutes, I've got some issues to mention here. For those of you who follow me on Twitter, you'll have seen that I did a WWE Network Mentions hashtag. Over the space of a 3-hour show, WWE mentioned their network a total of 31 times. Now this is both on-screen mentions and promo mentions. Now, for those of you who can't do quick math, that's an average of one mention every 6 minutes. That's one mention almost in the time that it would take for John Cena to beat both real Americans in a handicap match. That's depressing. It almost sounds a little desperate, and right now, if WWE want to fix the network, I personally think they need to release it sooner in the UK and Europe. You'll get more, you get more speak English. You get more buys, and you get more people that are actually going to subscribe to this. So therefore, their revenue goes up. Do you guys have any suggestions that you think would help prevent the mention of the WWE Network? Skeletor, what do you think first? Do you have any ideas that they could maybe use rather than have Michael Cole promote it every 20 minutes? Or do you think just maybe like a small box on screen could remind you? Skeletor.
Oh, me? I thought you were talking to Chris.
No,
Okay. Uh, okay. I want to make one quick point in that people seem to think that like the network's doing super badly. That doesn't really make sense to me. As before it even came out, Vince McMahon said this needs their goal was 1 million users in 1 year. They got 700,000 users in like 60 days. I don't understand how people were like acting like it's the end of the world. Uh, it's more than on track for what their goals were, but uh, they I get that they need to repeat it again and again to try to get people to buy it because it is an important thing for them. It's their new future, like their new big future thing, and I think they could probably cut it down just by, just give people the quick information, give people all the information once instead of giving them one sentence every 30 seconds and bringing it into situations where it no longer makes sense. Like, Michael Cole just brings it up all the time for no reason, and it's painful sometimes. And used to do the same thing with the WWE app until very recently. Like, I don't know what exactly you do to fix it. It's just, it does desperately need to be fixed because it's annoying.
Yeah, you made a point there. A lot of people do view the WWE Network at the moment as a failing project, so to say. I wouldn't say it's failing at all. I'd say it's fairly strong. The only
Yeah.
issue they're having is revenue, because obviously they're not charging a lot for it.
No, they are not.
$9.99 a month in US dollars, the equivalent in British pounds, is about £6. Right? For those of you who are listening, £6 won't even buy you a Subway and a drink now in Britain. You guys are getting this network dirt cheap. Thankful for what you're getting. I would honestly, right now, pay about 20 quid a month if I was getting this product. Your pay-per-view on top of that used to be, well, I'm not quite sure how much your pay-per-view was, but our one is £15. So, if I'm paying £5 extra on top of that for free network coverage, I'm okay with that. But I think the sooner they release it in Britain, anyway, they're going to have a lot more subscribers. Chris, obviously you come from the UK. What's your thoughts on it? Do you think it needs to be released here sooner, or are you quite happy to make the wait?
Well, first off, I've got to point out my friend John, who's listening. Also, as WWE will probably end up charging a tenner for the network. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, sounds about
in
right.
terms of, yeah, unfortunately, we always seem to get screwed in prices. Unfortunately, it's a great value for money, and like you said, you'll struggle to get a Subway for the equivalent of what the price actually is. Okay, so I've just got to go back a second. My friend has pointed out a manager.
Okay.
Fantasy booking would be The Rock.
That major fantasy
would work very well, but yeah, another story for another day. Well, another story for later even.
Yeah.
The network, I mean, you get a lot of good stuff on the network. You've got access to your pay-per-views. You've got, they're currently going through the Monday Night Wars. They're going through Best of Nitro, stuff like that. I mean, a lot of this footage is quite, I wouldn't say hard to come by, but it's not common these days. It's very, very, very good showings. I mean, the Monday Night Wars are highly regarded as some of the best TV for wrestling ever. The WWE Network is in that sense, you're getting a great value for money, and I can't blame them for promoting it per se. But yeah, okay, those kind of numbers for mentions are a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, this whole idea that they mention it once every 6 minutes, it's great for the first time they do it. But if it becomes a regular thing and it's once every 6 minutes, every show they're doing, they need to consider another option.
Yeah, well, you mentioned what would you recommend? My recommendation would be to not let Vince McMahon sit on the other end of a microphone telling Michael Cole, plug the network, plug the network, plug the network. That would probably be a great help, one thing. The other issue that you've then got, though, is they need to introduce content that isn't necessarily just... obviously, I'm not really know how to say it. Not just, old footage. They need exclusive things. I mean, Tough Enough will be a great one. I can't wait to see Tough Enough when it's released on the network. But if they could also get some interactive stuff happening on the network as well, like, booking matches for next week's Raw or something.
Yeah, I think the idea that they do all these signings of contracts and things in a Raw segment, while it's good money for Raw, it would be interesting occasionally to see maybe some of these signings or interviews like they used to do with Jim Ross. I think some of those are really interesting. If you could have more of those type things exclusively to the network, you could bring more people in.
Oh yeah, of course. And like I say, how cool would it be if you could go on Raw and you could say, okay, create a match for next week, whichever.
Yeah, it's a good option. Obviously, they've got to run the best and hope that WWE would actually pay attention to the voting system, though. Now, one thing that I would say, just moving on quickly, is the network is such a phenomenon. A lot of people have said, when it comes to the UK, you won't watch anything else. I don't watch anything else as it is, right? This isn't an issue for me. YouTube is still there, it's still free. And as sad as it's going to make people, if WWE really want to make money, they need to take all of their wrestling off YouTube. They've got a YouTube account. There's no need for it. They're only bringing in $5,000 for every 1 million views that they get. And while that doesn't seem like a lot for WWE, it's 1 million views per video. And it's not that easy to achieve. So with that in mind, YouTube's a big thing for wrestling at the minute. You know, it has been for the last 5 or 6 years. So I want to ask you guys, what is the most interesting match that you have found on YouTube? Because I know I've come across some strange ones recently. So Skeletor, do you think, what is your favorite match that you found on YouTube that you didn't think you'd probably be able to get a hold of?
Yeah, man, I haven't tried to dumpster dive for wrestling stuff on YouTube in so long. Man.
I love that term, dumpster dive.
Well, that's what it is, because most of it's low quality, virtually unwatchable. I mean, I don't think I ever went that obscure. I think about as obscure. I just liked looking up WCW related stuff because I never watched WCW, so I saw some Ric Flair Sting stuff in low quality. It's all fantastic. Everything they ever did together is incredible. Even the discounting anything that happened in TNA. TNA doesn't count. Not a real company. Forget about it.
Oh, okay, we're so gonna hit on that in a second.
I'm exaggerating, but
oh, you'll get your comeuppance, don't you worry. Chris, what about you, man? What would you say is the most interesting match you found on YouTube?
Honestly, none.
Really?
To put it that simple, I'm never really surprised if I can find something on YouTube. I mean, I found Undertaker, Mick Foley, and a Cell match. That was probably, bad quality, but it was still up there. Everything's on YouTube, man. You don't really go on YouTube and think, what am I not going to find?
I think a lot of the time on YouTube, you've got to be careful because there's always that one person that's like, look at this full pay-per-view. It's not a full pay-per-view. It's a link to Bolly Rules or something like that.
Yeah, but then you use your brain and go, well, I'm not going to click on this link.
Every time, yeah.
But, I do have a question that I'd like to bring up in a minute, though.
Okay. We'll tell you what, for those of you who are into your more ECW style wrestling, recently I came across the company BJW. This is Big Japan Wrestling, not Blowjob Wrestling, as so many of my Twitter followers suggested. Basically, BJW is the equivalent to CZW in Japan, but as we know, the Japanese like to take things that little bit further. I came across a piranha death match. Now, the whole point of this death match, and the only way to win it, is by making your opponent bleed, and then holding your opponent's head in the tank of piranhas for 10 seconds. Now, while a lot of you won't deem this as wrestling, it's still under a classified wrestling talent name. You guys can look it up on YouTube if you don't believe me, but Piranha Deathmatch is a real thing. It's absolutely shocking. So Chris, what did you have in mind?
My question was basically, some of my mates asked me, well, what do you guys think of having multiple Divas matches on Raw?
Oh, do you know what? I'm gonna jump straight to Skeletor with that one. What do you think with having multiple Divas matches on Raw?
I can get into them if they're good, but they so rarely are. The show could be half Divas matches, and I would not care if they were good matches. But they are almost never good matches. Ugh.
Yeah, I think a lot of, for me personally, the Diva matches, they're on the Bret Hart level, they're 4 out of 10, at most.
Yep.
A lot of them are set up so that they can further feuds, but not in the way that the match is going, in the way that the commentary is going. For instance, we saw this week, spoilers if you haven't seen Raw, Um, we saw the AJ Lee Page moment, where, for some obscure reason, AJ Lee decides to sit on the commentator table, and they have this really snide conversation that's about respect. Um, to me, that does nothing. That whole segment was more interesting than the match was, but it should be the other way around in some aspects. I think by having too many matches on Raw, you kind of nullify what's happening. For instance, the storyline with Nikki Bella in it. There's no need for that at all. It's 1 month too early. I'd even say it's gone on for a month already. I don't think there's been a need for 2 months before SummerSlam for this. Chris, what about you? Do you think there's too many Divas matches on Raw? Are you okay with it?
Honestly, I'm at a position where after watching NXT, I want the Divas to not have crappy 2, 3, 5 minute matches like they're having at the moment. I want to see a proper, 10, 15, 20 minute back and forth match. I mean, I'm hoping AJ and Paige can put that on. I mean, if they turn around to those two and said, "Ladies, do what you did on the Indies," that could be an incredibly interesting match to watch. I mean, even the aspect of stuff like having divas with tables is something that we don't really get to see anymore. But it's stuff that happens on the indie circuit. Then it's why the indie circuit diva matches tend to be more interesting. In that regard, I wouldn't mind having, a good 20, even 10, 15, 20 minute matches. Even on a pay-per-view, I wouldn't mind that. But when it comes down to these little 5 minute matches of Layla versus Summer Rae, or Nikki versus Alicia Fox, or Cameron and Naomi, or some crap like that, I really don't think that it's a good idea to go, because it feels like they're just filling time for the sake of filling time. And like you said, more stuff happens outside of the ring than it does in the ring. Nothing that happens in the ring in a Divas match seems to be meaningful anymore.
Yeah, I think the only way I can put this is they need to start taking note from TNA knockouts. Now, I know I'll get knocked for saying TNA is good at something. I like TNA. TNA are good at what they do. They're good at being an alternative right now. Um, but frankly, the knockouts in TNA, they have put on some amazing matches over the last year. You had at the very beginning of last year, you had Taryn Terrell versus Gail Kim in a series of like street fights, hardcore, and last knockout standing matches. Some of them were fantastic. Seeing Gail Kim do the figure four around, the ring post, actually brutal, because Taryn Terrell wasn't big enough that she could even put her hands close to the mat if she needed to. She was literally hanging by her legs. Divas now, I feel, and a lot of people on Twitter have agreed with me recently, a lot of divas now are eye candy. Although they always have been eye candy, they used to be able to wrestle as well. Now we've maybe got I'll say four. We have four properly athletic divas on the roster. Nothing wrong with that at all. But they need to be utilizing them better. And I think the only way to utilize them is to have less matches. You could have one Diva segment backstage. For instance, the AJ and Paige segment from this week. And then you could have had Naomi versus whoever. I mean, Naomi will put on a great match with any diva she's in the ring with at the minute, because she's a great athlete. So I think sometimes less is more, but in the right context, if that makes sense. I really hope that answers his question, Chris. We got asked a question on Twitter just a couple of minutes ago, actually. And it's a question that's been going around Twitter quite a bit with a lot of people. With Seth Rollins being Mr. Money in the Bank and Roman Reigns getting a big push, do you see Dean Ambrose falling behind, and if so, to what extent? For me personally, I don't think Dean's falling behind. I think Dean got a hell of a great moment on Raw last night, and I think personally he was probably going to get a lot more. That one line of, is that all you've got, was great. You didn't need to say any more. You could have taken a full beating again after that, and it still would have made him look strong. One line is sometimes all it takes. But had Rollins not been, looking after a tweaked knee during the main event, I believe we probably would have got a Dean Ambrose run out, and Rollins would have run off after that. Which is probably another reason that all the four guys in the Fatal 4-Way this Sunday looked a bit sloppy in the last minute or so, because the finishers were just getting thrown around. So, Skeletor, what do you think? Do you think Dean Ambrose is getting left behind, or do you feel he's getting enough attention as it is?
Dean Ambrose is not getting left behind. He is prominently featured on like every single WWE show. He's been on like every pay-per-view. He had a big match build for this Sunday, which may or may not happen now. The dude has definitely not been left behind. He's just doesn't have a. He's just the only guy right now who doesn't have a chance of winning a title like immediately. Because Seth can cash in any time, though he won't. Well, there's no way that's happening within the next few months. And Roman's definitely not going to win the title this early. So it's really, even though Roman's in more high profile matches, he has no chance of winning them, and Seth isn't going to cash in anytime soon, and Dean just gets to look good all the time and beat up on Seth Rollins constantly. And get a badass one-liners like that one on Raw.
That's just it. He looks like a badass when it comes across. And not in the Roman Reigns kind of badass, but he's a muscle-bound superhero kind of guy.
No, it's insane to a badass.
Yeah, he's insane, and that is what they need to put across with him. It's great. And you said there about this match on Sunday maybe being called off. I think that would be a great decision. It would put so much more into the feud towards SummerSlam. Chris, what do you think? Are you thinking that Ambrose is getting left behind?
I'm honestly in a position where I think Ambrose is running ahead. Especially in terms of Rollins. I mean, you've given this guy Mr. Money in the Bank, and you've given him the briefcase, and you've said he's going to cash in, and he's pretty much guaranteed a World Heavyweight Championship. But Ambrose is the one that the crowd's reacting to. Rollins is... I'm not sure what it is about him, but he doesn't have the same energy in the ring that Ambrose does. He doesn't get that fan reaction. There's no chemical reaction from that crowd. I've said this multiple times, I see Seth Rollins dropping that briefcase to Ambrose at some point. I think that would be a fantastic way to do it. I don't see it falling behind. And what was touched upon, by the way, about Seth Rollins can cash in at any moment. My God, I hope it happens. I hope they go to have it happen on Sunday, but Brock Lesnar turns up, and Brock Lesnar's like, "Yeah, don't."
Yeah, I think this opportunity with Brock coming back. We were talking about this earlier. I love this idea that Paul Heyman is currently talking about Plan C. This is great. If they decide to take this the Seth Rollins knee injury and roll him out now as, well, Plan B's ruined, they're going to have to get in Plan C. And as we've all figured out, or been alluded to believe, that Plan C is Brock Lesnar.
So, no, Plan C is Curtis Axel.
Oh, okay, sorry, the other Paul Heyman guy.
Yeah, people thought he got left behind. Not true. He's been the plan all along.
And I think we're going to go through all the letters and all the Paul Heyman guys till we get to Plan R.
We got Plan R.
Plan Y back.
I have...
Sorry, on you go, Chris.
I was going to say, I have to just jump in here a sec, because the whole Plan C, Plan B thing, I would actually love to see Plan C override Plan B in the sense that they have Rollins go to cash in. Lesnar's music hits, Lesnar comes down, destroys Cena. Rollins goes to cash in, and Lesnar just sort of looks at Rollins and says, no, and then F5s him.
What, kind of goes into business for himself, you mean?
Yes, that's what I would love to see from... Because, straight away you've then got Lesnar looking big. Because not only is he just taken down the champ, he's also just annihilated Rollins and stopped him from cashing in. And, I'd love to see him intimidate Rollins into cashing in, and then you could have Rollins turn into the cowardly heel kind of suck-up thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think you run an issue, though, that Lesnar ends up looking like a babyface in that situation.
Oh, my friends just pointed out, Plan C isn't Curtis Axel. Plot twist, Plan C is CM Punk.
Or Plan C is Cesaro.
Cesaro. Tell you what, let me ask you, Brock Lesnar, obviously at some point we're going to see his return over the next few weeks. So, well, I say obviously, it's not obvious at the minute, plans change. So, providing this idea that Brock Lesnar might return, do you think we'll see him at Battleground, or do you think we'll see him the night after Battleground? Chris, you first.
Honestly, I'd say we're more likely to see him at Raw, but I would prefer to see him at the end of Battleground.
Okay.
Because obviously, Fatal 4-Way, it's no disqualification, isn't it?
The Fatal 4-Way? No, I think it's standard rules.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
No. Fatal 4-Way is no DQ unless it's elimination, which it's not. So it's no DQ. Because what do you do? What do you do if somebody hits someone with a chair? In a Fatal 4-Way.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would love to see Lesnar just come down and just F5, have something like Reigns is about to win the title and he's about to spear Cena, Lesnar's music hits, Lesnar runs down, that kind of thing. I'd love to see that. Because then you've also got Reigns looking like a big, Reigns was this close to winning it and Lesnar interfered.
Yeah, it's a good option, actually. Skeletor, what do you think? Do you think we see Brock before or after Battleground?
I get the impression that it's probably going to be Raw, though if it did play out like he described, that would be pretty great. Though I guess there would always be a group of people who are disappointed by a weird finish on pay-per-views, but I'm pretty cool. I'm pretty cool with that kind of thing.
The reason I'd be pretty cool with that is because I could see it tying in then to Reigns' Lesnar feud. Later on they could say, this all goes back to Battleground last year.
That's a big jump back, isn't it?
Well, that's something that WWE never does anymore. They don't go, oh, well, this is what happened all these months ago. They now go, this is what happened last week.
That wasn't something they were ever big into, except for the time period where they didn't have a weekly show.
I do remember at one point they did jump back and they were like, 2 years ago, this is what happened. And I was like, holy crap, they've actually gone back longer than 2 weeks.
When they do it, and they've always done it occasionally, but they've never liked doing it. I think Vince is against bringing up stuff people haven't seen or don't remember.
We can tell that from the Anonymous GM is Hornswoggle, the fact that Hornswoggle was in one of the segments where Anonymous GM sent, and everyone was like, this makes no sense.
Well, that was just them getting rid of that storyline, because they realized they didn't want it anymore. That was an abandonment.
That was lazy writing. And I think that was Vince thinking we were all idiots.
I just think that was a joke because they had already abandoned the storyline. Like, that wasn't like... They had stopped doing the announcement thing without any acknowledgement for like months, and then they said that it was Hornswoggle.
Yeah.
Okay, tell you what, you made an interesting point there, Chris. Let me ask, do you guys feel that sometimes WWE can treat their fans as though they're not as intelligent as they may seem? For instance, dropping storylines, making us, think about other things, in that we're meant to think Undertaker has faced 21 opponents at WrestleMania and not just 17. Do you think this is, it's done on purpose, or do you feel it's degrading to fans at times? Skeletor, you go first.
I don't think they think we're dumb or anything. I just think that new fans are constantly coming in, and what they want to do is to keep it very accessible. However, I don't think that actually does anything. Like, I think that if you tell people information, they'll just go with it, and you don't need to just reset everything every 3 or 4 months, which they like to do. But it's like it's nice whenever there's even the smallest acknowledgement of something that happened a long time ago. Like after the Shield turned face, Mark Henry still hated Roman Reigns because Mark Henry got powerbombed by him like 18 times. Like that was a nice acknowledgement of a fact that other things have happened in history. That's the 5-year-old who tuned in 6 months ago might not remember or have seen.
Yeah, I think sometimes they're really good at acknowledging past problems, and then there's other times where they're really bad at it. For instance, they mention occasionally the RV Money in the Bank, taking that into consideration. RVD was a Money in the Bank holder, and he won, obviously. And they brought that up a lot, but what they didn't bring up was that Alberto Del Rio had won this Money in the Bank before. They kept that very quiet, like they didn't want people to think about it. Not because it wasn't, yeah, in fact it probably was because it wasn't a great moment.
It was not a great moment.
In fact, it was a very iffy moment, but things like that, I find sometimes they could do with just mentioning them, whether people like it or not, Chris, what do you think? Do you think WWE can sometimes dumb down their fans slightly?
I don't necessarily think that they mean to do it. I think it's just something that sort of happens. I mean, the best example that we've discussed about this was Tensai. They seem to think that nobody would notice that Tensai had already been in the WWE once under Albert. And it was one of those things where it sort of happened, and I started reading stuff, and they were like, "Oh, the WWE executives aren't happy with how he was received by the crowd." And it's like, well, what did you really expect? You expect nobody to realize and connect the dots? It's a simple matter of I don't think they think everything through. They probably go, "Oh, this sounds like really cool," but don't necessarily think, "Oh, well, we can't do this because we've already contradicted it in the past." I mean,
John, you made a really good point there about Tensai, actually. They kind of forgot that people would yell Albert in the land.
yeah, I mean, it's nobody's fault. It's not WWE's fault per se, but I think it's something that they probably should have looked at, because it did kind of feel degrading when they were then like, "Oh, well, we don't like the reaction we're getting," and it's like, well, you couldn't have expected us to not know this. Like, that's kind of staring you in the face obvious, and they expected us to not realise. I mean, the example you brought up was The Undertaker. The Undertaker's buried 21 men at WrestleMania. Well, first off, it's not 21 men, is it? It's, what, 17, did you say?
Yeah, it's 17 or 18, off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's right. Yeah, I think it's 17 actually. But, right there, it's like, well, it's a simple matter of they aren't thinking through what they're really saying or doing.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times WWE tend to forget that sometimes maybe they've mentioned something in the past, and then a lot of fans might click onto it, and then it's not brought up again. I think a lot of the times, matches like John Cena and Sheamus, they had some good hardcore matches back in the day. But people, I say back in the day, like it was years ago. In fact, it was only about 4 or 5 years ago. People forget that Sheamus was this really good heel, and I don't mean like the hardcore fans forget, because obviously those of us that are online, we like to keep up to date with our history. But your average fan that's watching Raw each week won't really remember that unless they're told. Like Skeletor said, fans are great at listening to what they're told. If we sit there and say, "Hey, by the way, Bray Wyatt used to be Husky Harris," you're going to get more fans going, "Well, what's a Husky Harris?" They're not going to question why he's that now.
I'm not sure if that's the best example, because you don't want to acknowledge that he was Husky Harris.
No, that's what I'm saying. If you were
You
told,
don't want that at all.
No, if WWE told fans, like they haven't acknowledged it since he's been on TV, that used to be Husky Harris.
They shouldn't. Kane's not acknowledged as Isaac Yankem ever. You don't do that.
No, and that's exactly the point I'm making. I'm saying if they were to do that, it would ruin a character.
Oh, it would.
Sometimes WWE do have to treat the fans
Yeah.
in a way that would almost dumb down the character, not the fans.
Yeah, sometimes you have to do that.
Okay, going back to this week's Raw, I saw a little something. The segment with Cena and Reigns to begin with, it was a bit of a refreshing segment. We didn't see the Authority to begin with. Thank God, because I mean, so many of us were talking about it the night before that we were going to see another 15-minute Authority moment. In context, Roman Reigns is being booked. I don't want to say as a heel, because the way he's coming across, his attitude is very heel. Because he's out for himself and no one else. While Cena is still doing the babyface thing. Do you guys have a problem with heels now being cheered? Because this is a big thing that's happening at the minute, and I blame the internet entirely for this. Like, we have all been cheering the bad guy for years, saying, like, they deserve to be pushed. So, do you think it's a bad thing that heels are being cheered and faces are being booed? Skeletor, you go first.
It's not a new thing, even though it has gotten worse. Like there's cases of it going all the way back to like the late '80s and before. Of Jake the Snake was a heel, Hulk Hogan was a face, and people chanted DDT the entire match. But it's not. It is kind of a problem but I think it's a problem with WWE more than just the fans, because I feel like if people really hate a guy and you want him to be a face, you gotta just roll with the punches and turn him heel. Like they did it well with Batista, where they wanted him to be a face, and then he wasn't. People didn't like him, and then they changed him. I think they need to make that kind of shift more often.
Yeah, I think like you said, it's a bigger problem for WWE than it is anyone else. If you're trying to get like a top guy over at the minute, like I hate using Cena as the example because he's been kind of booed and cheered for years now.
Since like 2010.
Yeah, he's the biggest face and the biggest heel at the same time. It all depends on where they go. But these fans now, the ones in the arenas still chanting CM Punk, and the ones that are still hoping for, Sandow to get his major push. I'm not saying these fans are the problem, but these fans should also realize if they're smart enough to see the talent with, Damien Sandow and CM Punk, so to say, they should be smart enough to realize there's a reason that you cheer for the face, and there's a reason that you boo the heel. And while everyone's entitled to their opinion, I think if you're there to enjoy the product, you should become completely immersed in it. You shouldn't be thinking in the booking format. If you're watching it, this is what I encouraged people the other day. When watching Raw, turn off Twitter and turn off Facebook. Just have your own opinions on it and do your own thing.
Yeah, when I was at Raw...
There's no reason to boo them.
When I was at Raw, I booed the Wyatts, the Luke Harper, Eric Rowan. Not because I just like the guys. I like them a lot, but they were beating up on the Usos. So what else am I supposed to do?
No, exactly. That's the great thing as well, because the Wyatts are meant to be the heels in that feud.
Yeah, they are, which is great. Like, the Luke Harper and Eric Rowan are much better than Bray at just getting pure heel heat. Yeah, it's partially booking, but it also is how Bray speaks and works.
I think it depends on, as well, who they're in the match with. Because if you put them against the Rhodes Brothers or Kofi and Big E, they're probably going to get the heel reaction. But if you put them in a team against Ryback, they're probably going to get a face reaction.
Oh, one quick. Did you see that video they put on WWE.com of will Ryback break up?
No, I haven't. We'll hit on that in a second.
It's the greatest thing you will ever see in your life. Just saying right now.
That's quite an interesting topic. Chris, what do you think? Do you think the fans being anti-face, is a good thing, or do you think it's quite annoying to watch?
I think it's a good thing. 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 I think it's a good th I think it's good in some sense, but it's very eye-opening to how booking should be working. I mean, the perfect example of this being Bray Wyatt. We've come up with great simple ways for Bray Wyatt to get heat, and it's stuff that WWE doesn't try to do. They don't try to get Cena cheered anymore. They don't try to get Bray Wyatt booed. They don't try to get Rollins booed. They don't try really that hard anymore. And the problem is that when you then take someone with an interesting character like Bray Wyatt, you run the risk of him being liked. I mean, Ziggler's another example. When Ziggler was a heel, Ziggler was good in the ring. Ziggler showed he was good in the ring. People started to realise he was good in the ring and started to like him. It's...
I think there's times where a talent can be good and deserves to be cheered. Like Cesaro is a good example of that. He's good and does deserve to be cheered. But that affects that too.
Oh yeah, even as a heel, he is... even as a heel, whenever he does the King of Swing kind of thing, he'll still get cheered for that. I mean, what I would love to see, a great way to get heat with that would be, to swing them once and just stop and just look at the crowd and say no.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really good idea actually, because it would be a change. I want to hit on. I'm going to cover both your favorite topics tonight. So, Chris, in a minute or two, I want to talk some CM Punk with you.
Ooh.
Skeletor, you know what? We've discussed Kane and we've discussed Ryback, and Kane more so. So let's talk a little Ryback for a bit.
Okay.
Right. I want to go over this because
I do love those guys. I was screaming for them on Superstars.
What is it that you find so good about Ryback? Because I want fans to understand you can go out there and enjoy these. I don't want to say lower cards. Enjoy these lower mid-card guys because they are putting on just as good a show as everyone else that's out there.
Well, Rev Axel particularly, I like them individually first. Like I like Axel because he's very smooth in the ring and has good ring work. Like he's not super exciting, but he's very good at what he does. And Ryback's just a crazy beast man who thumps his chest like a gorilla, which is fantastic. But their combination together made me like them a million times more than I like them individually. And and you wouldn't get it all just by watching TV because they don't get that many segments, unfortunately. But if you go to like WWE.com or YouTube and just look at the stuff they put up of those guys are incredible together. They had a video yesterday called "Will Ryback Break Up?" And they just start they're like talking about the Battle Royal that this Sunday, and they're like, Curtis Axel's like, I will become Intercontinental Champion again, and Ryback's like, no, I will become Intercontinental Champion the first time, and Ryback is like, no, wait, we're not gonna fight. I don't want to hurt a former Intercontinental Champion. And Axel is like, yeah, and I don't want to hurt a guy who's never won a big match in his entire life. And they start fighting with each other, and then at the end, they stare at each other in silence for a few seconds and go, I don't want to fight you, man. And they hug. They do like a big love hug and smack each other on the back a bunch of times. And then let go. And then Ryback's like, after this huge man hug for like 30 seconds, Ryback goes, yeah, chicks. Beating guys up championships. We're gonna win. Cold beer. Let's go. So it just killed me. They're like projecting this weird like Larry and what was it? Chuck? Yeah. Who was it? The gay guys. They're projecting that these two jock douchebags are actually like gay for each other, and it's pretty hilarious to me.
I think to me that's a really good point. These guys are actually funny, and I think that's the reason to actually enjoy them. Like I said, these guys go out and they put on good matches, just the same as everyone else. And whether you like them or not, and yes, Ryback went from main event to mid-card.
So did everybody else like him. King Kong Bundy went from main event to mid-card between WrestleManias.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's nothing wrong with liking a mid-card guy. If someone asks you who you like, you go tell them. Because I find a lot of fans on the internet are actually afraid to say who they really like. We all seem to follow this trend that we have to like who the internet likes.
Oh, No, the internet is not like Rybaxel, but when I hear that sad horn, I will still pop.
Yeah, for those of you listening that don't know the sad horn, go look up their theme. The horn in, the instrumental horn in their intro, it sounds so depressed and so sad. But I think it's cool that obviously you guys are all willing to share different thoughts on why you like certain wrestlers that might not be liked at the moment. So Chris, let's just let's do 2 or 3 minutes. I was gonna say 5 minutes. I think we're pushing it there. Let's do 2 or 3 minutes on CM Punk. What is it that you feel just now? With CM Punk, if he was to return, do you think he's I'm gonna say deserving to go straight into that main event? I know obviously he will go straight into the main event because he's money, but do you feel he's deserving to do that, or do you think he should do his dues and go back through the company again?
I think he deserves to go to the main event on set conditions. These conditions obviously being that he's working with the guys like Rollins, Reigns, Ambrose, people like that, people that need the experience. I really think that Punk is, I watched Punk's documentary, he's described as being a locker room leader. It would be great to see him go back and be in the main event and get a chance to, work with Ambrose and Rollins and go backstage and say, okay, here's what you need to work on. Because, for example, like I said earlier, Rollins to me doesn't feel like he has the same energy as Ambrose. It'd be cool to see Punk come in, work a match with him, and then go backstage and have him talk to Rollins and say, this is what you need to do to get the energy, to get the crowd more interested and more invested in you as a character, and etc.
So you kind of use him in the same way that Jericho's coming across at the moment.
Yeah, similar. I don't mind necessarily, between doing that if he goes into a main title run or something, or has a feud for the title, as long as he's willing to work with the guys that need working with. I mean, Punk Cesaro would be a great feud.
Yeah, I think now there's the option to, and obviously you got the element of Paul Heyman in there. Hopefully they don't, if it ever did happen, they wouldn't run the risk of doing the same thing with Brock. Because I found the feud with Brock and Punk to be a bit dull, but that's just me.
Yeah, I completely agree, and the only reason I think that Cesaro would work better is because Cesaro seems to be moving slightly away from Heyman.
Is that in reference to this week's Raw?
No, that's not in a reference to... Well, yes and no, but I also feel like Heyman's talking a little bit less for Cesaro now, generally.
Yeah, I would agree.
So...
in backstage segments and things.
Yeah, I would like to see Cesaro, hopefully he's learning a thing or two from Paul Heyman and he's learning how to talk a little bit better. I would like them to separate and, see Cesaro now try and work as his own mouthpiece. Because if he can do that, he's a main event star right there and then. And putting him in a program with a guy like Punk would legitimize that.
Yeah. Do you know what? Talking to Paul's, Paul has joined us eventually. So, how you doing, man?
Nah, good. How you guys doing?
Yeah, we're good. We're just talking a little bit about, stars that you might like that other people currently don't. We've had Ryback and CM Punk so far. So, who would you say that is like your unpopular fan choice at the moment?
Sheamus.
Sheamus. Oh, good. Really good shout. I've spoken a bit about Sheamus on this episode already. What is it that you like about Sheamus then? Why do you feel that we should be interested in Sheamus instead of booing him?
I just like his in-ring. I mean, his character is, corny and hokey. I wish that he would tell more stories. Because, I love that shit. When he would tell stories.
Like the Irish
folklore. Yeah, it was great. It was fun stuff. If he's going to continue to stay face, he gets over huge. The kids love him. But when he gets in the ring, I mean, he tears it up. I mean, he just has like this old school brawling style where it just looks like he beats the crap out of you every match. You can tell by his body each week, that he has a new bruise here and there. This is a tough dude. So, he gets by just with me. He gets that cred from me, by just being a tough guy. And, I just enjoy his matches.
Yeah, I think Sheamus puts on a lot of matches that are actually they're downplayed. Like a lot of people don't seem to appreciate how much effort he does put into matches. Like this week on Raw, he seemed to get quite a big pop. Like when he came out, I think that's kind of impressive. Tends to get that each week.
Yeah, he gets a huge pop, every show. But I mean,
Yeah,
because he's like a punch and kick guy, quote unquote. He gets no respect. Screw that. I enjoy his matches.
that's cool. Here's a question for all
Yeah,
three of
he's a
you.
monster.
Obviously, yeah, he is a monster in some aspects. Um, Here's a question for all three of you then. Right now, obviously, we're seeing this build of Roman Reigns. Um, do you feel when Roman Reigns gets to the pinnacle, which is at this point in his career the WWE title, when he gets there, do you feel a lot of the fans will turn on him in the same way that they did to Cena? Because obviously at this point he'll have been booked to the moon. Um, do you feel they'll turn on him, or do you feel they'll stick by him in the same way they did with The Rock and Austin? I know it's a different crowd and a different era, but it's just a thought. Skeletor, what do you think?
Uh, it depends on how they treat Roman, because the reason I think the point where, because while there are always mixed crowds on Cena, the point where it became that every crowd was mixed to hating him was the whole Nexus area of time where he would basically beat like five of them at a time, or they would have a 10-on-1 handicap match, which they would end in DQ because they had to cheat to beat him. Or like that period of time where he just got booked so strong over all these new young guys and made everyone look like garbage for a while. Like it, I think that was the point. And as long as Roman is booked strongly, but is not shown to be unstoppable and to the point of making everyone else look like garbage, people will like him for a very long time. Like Sting was, I think, might be the greatest babyface of all time, in my opinion, and it's because that dude would lose. That dude would lose. Like that guy got power bombed by Vader and pinned fairly cleanly for a world heavyweight title. And because he's a face. He's supposed to be an underdog sometimes, even though he's a huge, powerful guy. So it's just you gotta book a guy correctly. And I think Sting is the best example of booking a babyface correctly for a long period of time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Sting's a really good shout on that. Paul, what's your thoughts? Do you think Reigns will be turned on, or
Well, it all depends on how they're going to book him from here until he gets to the title. I mean, if if they shove him down our throat of this is the guy, you will cheer him. This is the guy, whether you like it or not. Then yeah, fans will turn on him in a minute. But they have to really toe the line because this could easily become Lex Luger, and that's really how I'm. Yeah, exactly. That's that's almost the feeling that I'm getting from this push is that whether you like it or not, this is what we're going to do.
yeah, no, I really don't know
Oh
what I can
yeah.
answer that. I think a lot of it is the fact that fans do like him,
Hmm.
but they're never ever happy with what goes on in the product. There's always someone upset, and all it takes is for two or three important, I say important loosely, important people on the internet to say the same thing, and everyone's on board that train.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we are we're all about pack mentality. So,
I
except
like
from this show.
I like that phrase. Chris, what do you think, man? Do you think it's going to be a case where they let Reigns go over the top and people cheer, or do you see him getting booed?
Basically comes down to booking, doesn't it?
So we're all
They,
fairly set on this is a booking.
yeah, this isn't a matter of he's definitely going to get booed, he's definitely not going to get booed. It's a matter of are they going to use him properly? If they don't, he'll get booed. If they do, he'll get cheered.
Yeah, you see, the whole thing happened with Cena as well. I mean, we're all saying it's a booking thing. I've got to say it's a lot to do with overexposure. If we see him too often, there's going to be that issue where we get too much rains and too much roaring, too many spears. No one wants to see a Superman punch 8 times a week.
But here's
And
the
I think,
thing: you've now got with Roman Reigns seen as one of those guys that won't budge on his character. Reigns is a guy that doesn't give a crap about his character. You've got more flexibility in the sense that Cena is very, very, very stale. No one can deny that. The biggest Cena mark in the world would have difficulty denying that fact. Reigns, I'm hoping, won't get stale, which is hopefully where he won't get booed. Because if he does get booed, he can just change it up a little.
yeah, I think because he's so young, like you're saying, that'll probably really aid him in the course of his career.
Yep. Also, I'd like to just quickly say, Punk has officially been moved to the alumni on the WWE website.
Yeah, I mean, his contract did run out tomorrow, or now, officially in the UK. So, I mean, these things happen, though. Tell you what, guys, it might seem like a bit of a strange question. We spoke often about gimmicks and characters working well with the wrestlers. I want to ask you guys, what is the worst gimmick to have failed? And by that, I mean, what has been the gimmick that's failed that you think could have been the most successful? Personally, I'll give the example of, I think it was Sean O'Hare. I'm not telling you what you don't already know. This character for me was about 8 years too early. If he was around now, he would have been great. Unfortunately, the ring work wasn't great, but he could have been a great mouthpiece. I'm using the word great because I really like that gimmick. I think the possibility that they could have gone with it is the fact that they could have used him to, I don't want to say brainwash because that's Bray's thing, but they could have used him to impose ideas on people to make them go after titles and win them for him. So, Paul, what would you say is the most underrated gimmick so far have been passed to the side?
Wow. That's a tough one. And really great example, though, there was Sean O'Hare. Because I really dug him in WCW. Oh, shit. Man, I had it and now I just lost it. It was Dan Spivey when he came to WWF. Help. He was dressed like De Niro in Cape Fear.
I know who you mean.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
The one that looked like Bray Wyatt but isn't Bray Wyatt.
Exactly.
If anyone can get that name, please tweet it.
Yep.
That'd be great. But
yeah, if it was the character obviously works. We're seeing it work now. If it was just given to someone to a better performer, it would have gotten over back in 91, 92, instead of 20 years later.
Yeah, I think we've said it before. Sometimes the gimmick comes too soon.
Yeah, some guys are just ahead of their time.
Yeah, exactly. Raven's a good example of that. Chris, what about you? What do you think is the most underrated, unused gimmick, so to say?
What do you mean by underrated, unused? Because
well, like I said, Sean O'Hare was there. They had the vignettes for him. He was only really on SmackDown twice, and then they got rid of him. Another example of this, although it's not a great example, is Mordecai. Mordecai was there. It was an opportunity with the character, and they just didn't take it.
Bo Dallas, the first time he appeared in the Royal Rumble, eliminated Wade Barrett, and we pretty much never heard anything about him for about a year.
Yeah, I think that's a decent example actually, because obviously Bo Dallas, he's good, but he did need that time in NXT to help hone this character.
Oh, he did, but it was pretty ridiculous how he turned up. He eliminated Wade Barrett at the Intercontinental Champion and made such a big deal out of it. And then it just didn't matter.
Yeah, if you remember though, they did that this year with Rusev. Rusev showed up for the Royal Rumble and then didn't appear again until after WrestleMania.
But at least it wasn't a year wait. You
That,
know, it was.
that's very true. Skeletor, what about you? Do you have any gimmicks that you feel were underused?
Yeah, they're that's tough. I feel like if you had a better guy in it, like someone like Bo Dallas who's really good at comedy and like just being a goofy dude, they probably could have gotten over that. I can't remember what it was. It was like a 2006 or 7 SmackDown gimmick of a fitness trainer. He had a Segway and did dumb crap, like, and had like a valet who was like a fitness. It's great,
Simon,
stupid gimmick, and it could have been okay if someone like Bo was in the role, where he understands the goofiness and comedy of a role and can play up to it.
yeah, I think his name was Simon Dean.
It was Simon Dean.
Yeah, I think that's a good example actually. That's a case of the character not fitting the wrestler.
It
Um,
was okay. It didn't. I think it had more potential than was tapped there.
yeah, that's the key thing as well. A lot of these gimmicks are great. If you look back at the Attitude Era, there were so many of them. Um, Even in the Ruthless Aggression era, that you had Nathan Jones, and he was, he was training with the Undertaker on screen, and he was being mentored by the Undertaker, and all of a sudden he just wasn't there anymore. Like he could have been a big player had they really pushed this idea that the Undertaker had trained him.
He was not very good at the whole wrestling thing.
Oh, I agree. He wasn't great in the ring, but given time, if they hadn't taken him up when he was so green, he probably would have been quite impressive. They were
Yeah.
trying to make a land of small people with giants again.
Yeah, that's something they do every few years, which is, oh, we need a big dude. I don't care if he can work or do anything, but we need a big dude. I think that was also what got Cully his initial push and appearance, is just we need a big dude who's not the Big Show.
You know what? That was a perfect segue for my next question. This week on Twitter, guys, we asked the question to all of our followers: does size matter in wrestling? And no, we don't mean the obvious dirty connotations. Get your mind out the gutters. Um, we mean, do you think that wrestling size is an issue? Because obviously, just now you've got Kane, Big Show, Khali. They're all on the last couple of legs of their career. I'm not going to say it's soon, but we can see them disappearing probably in the next 5 to 6 years safely. A lot of people are saying we've got a Luke Harper. You know, I'm looking for someone tall, like an actual giant. Do you think when you've got an actual giant in the ring, it helps the match? Because I think it's a very imposing character. Obviously, matches like Big Show versus Rey Mysterio, they were great because they really helped to establish the underdog mentality with Rey Mysterio. Um, a lot of my followers were replying with, well, size doesn't matter, in that a match will be good whether or not people are interested in the match, and size will be good if people don't give a shit about the characters. But size is a bad thing if that's all people are focused on, with aspects like the Great Khali, who is actually so tall that he struggles to walk. So, I mean, do you think size is important in wrestling? Paul, what do you think?
If you ask Vince, he's going to say yes, of course. You know, you got to be over 6 foot, over 200 pounds to be considered a threat. Just because wrestling is Vince wants to have that larger than life appeal when it comes to his superstars. That's why they're not called wrestlers anymore; they're superstars. Um, but to me, I've never liked the bigger guys. I mean, yeah, they're cool to see, but give me 2 5'8" guys that can go in the ring. But as far as does size matter, unfortunately, yes, it does. If you're looking to get pushed, yeah, being huge isn't going to hurt you. If you're 7 foot and 300 pounds and you can get a job as a pro wrestler, whether you're going to be good at it or not. You know, you can get paid doing it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. A lot of smaller guys can go well, while the big guys are. I don't want to say a freak show attraction, but that is kind of a lot of the time.
It is. I mean, you know, you just look at WCW. You know, and Kevin Nash always talk about the vanilla midgets. You know, there's your perfect example of a 7-footer. You know, keeping guys under 6 foot down that were superiorly talented to him.
Yeah. By the way, your question was answered. The character name you were looking for was Waylon Mercy.
Yes, Waylon Mercy.
Yep, that was sent in by A.M. Johnson, so thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, what do you think? Do you think this is a big deal, that size really matters in wrestling?
Here's the problem I've got with this conversation is, does it matter? Or it comes down to a matter of, does it matter? Yes. Should it matter? No. I have this issue where a lot of people say, oh, well, he's a vanilla midget, like when they talk about Punk or Bryan or anybody else. It's like, well, you can call them whatever the hell you want because they're not the tallest guys in the world. They're not 6'8", they're not massive. But they put on some of the best damn matches you'll get. I mean, look at Ambrose, for example. Ambrose is very, very hot at the moment in WWE. He's not a big guy. Perfect example, though, of size shouldn't matter. Unfortunately, Vince seems to be very old-fashioned in the sense that he believes all wrestlers should be 6'6", weighing 340 pounds of pure muscle. All wrestlers should apparently look like Arnold Schwarzenegger used to. You know, to me, it's a rather outdated point of view and a rather outdated way of thinking of it. Because, you know, Sin Cara, Rey Mysterio, again, they're about my height. They do their job in the ring, though, and they do it pretty damn well. I mean, especially Hunico now. Hunico's putting on damn good shows as Sin Cara, and whether or not people want to admit that. His height has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I think it's really sad when your character is, you know, when Hunico does you better than you do you.
Yeah, I don't necessarily blame Sin Cara for that. I think that was probably WWE's fault for rushing him to the main roster and not saying, you know, let's go through NXT and make sure you know what you're doing.
Completely agree. Skeletor, what do you think, man? Obviously, you guys are saying it's down to Vince's preference. Do you think size matters in wrestling?
Okay, here's a bit of honesty. It kind of does, in that, like, if I see a huge dude do something that a little guy does, I am, like, way more impressed by it. Like, I am way more into Bam Bam Bigelow than I am into, like, 90% of anybody else. The same applies to Big Boss Man and Kane and Undertaker and other guys who are huge but can move. If you're huge and can move, I'll pick you over a small guy who can move. Even if the small guy can move even a little bit better. Those guys are incredible to watch, and it's just also Dean Ambrose is not a small dude. Dean Ambrose is like 6'4" and like 230. He is taller than John Cena is. The current, and like weighs only like 10 pounds less than the current #1 babyface. It's just one of those things. Size does kind of matter. Like, most of the best, most interesting guys to watch have some level of height to them. Even the guys people think of as small aren't that small. Because Rob Van Dam is like 6'1", 240 pounds. So yeah, it kind of does matter. Like, I mean, there's great. I love Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan's like my second favorite. Daniel Bryan's in like my top 5 wrestlers of all time, pretty much, at least in terms of in ring. But he's but he's kind of the exception. I will pick a big guy who can move over just a little dude.
Yeah, I think that's a great reason. I completely agree as well, actually. Because if I see a guy like 10-foot Rensis against Skinny Chris, and Skinny Chris is doing all the high-flying moves, and Rensis is keeping up with him, I'm going to be more impressed with Rensis doing like these high-flying spots than Skinny Chris, because I would expect it every time.
Yeah. Well, like, friggin', Bam Bam does a moonsault, and I'm 100 times more impressed than anybody else ever did doing a moonsault.
Yeah, do you know what? I remember the first time I saw the Blue Mini do a moonsault when he was Blue Dust at St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1999. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was incredible to watch like a larger guy do a moonsault.
But yeah, but I will not take a dude who's just big. Like, I don't like the Great Khali or Giant Gonzalez. If you're just a big guy and have no other positive traits, then no.
Yeah,
Dude, if you can do a moonsault or like walk on a rope or walk on the ropes or even do a sweet flying clothesline, you're my guy forever.
yeah, I think Taker. This is why Taker is put down as one of the best big
Yeah.
men of all time.
Vader, Taker, Kane, Bam Bam, to a lesser extent, but still very, very good. Big Boss Man. All those guys. I love all those guys.
Yeah, I think they're great. You know what? We spoke about big guys. Let's talk a little bit about little guys. And the little guy that has just been signed, and I say little, again, he's not that short. The Japanese superstar Kenta. I raised the question this week on Twitter. Will Kenta's being in WWE hinder Daniel Bryan? We've been treated basically to Daniel Bryan. He has been, a focal point in the ring, and he's been fantastic. But we're now getting a guy that has done what Daniel Bryan has done, and kind of taught Daniel Bryan in a lot of respects when he was in Japan. So I wonder, with Kenta coming to WWE, are we going to see different moves, or are we just going to see an Asian guy doing the exact same moveset as Daniel Bryan? What do you think, Chris?
I think this is the issue you're going to get, is Kenta's very similar to Daniel Bryan. It's very, very, very hard to actually decide on that. Because the problem you've got is that they do have a kind of similar style. And Vince being Vince is going to pick the bigger guy over the other guy. So God knows, to be completely honest.
Okay, so you're kind of unsure as to how it'll play out then.
Yeah.
Cool. Let me ask you, Paul, then. Do you think that Kenta being in WWE will kind of hinder Daniel Bryan in the fact that they have practically the same movesets and they're practically the same size?
Well, you gotta think that when Bryan comes back, if he comes back, is the bigger question. That he is going to. They're both going to be changing their movesets. You're not going to be seeing Kenta go to sleep, and if they do, it's going to be just as a middle finger to Punk. But I mean, they throw a lot of kicks. They do like the running knee, that type of thing. One or the other is going to have to change them unless they're building it. Unless they can be smart and build it as Kenta comes in with a mouthpiece, maybe a Paul Heyman. That's accusing Daniel Bryan of stealing his moves and things like that, and then you can build a feud around that. But I don't know if they're going to be that smart to do that. But either way, that's the only way I could see both those guys doing the same moves at the same time.
I think that's a really good way of looking at it, actually. Skeletor, what do you think?
I have never watched Kenta wrestle. I mean, I understand that he does the GTS and the running knee, and has a similar-ish style to Daniel Bryan and stuff. But I don't think he necessarily needs to replace Daniel Bryan. You can have guys who wrestle similarly be pretty different guys. You gotta make sure he has a different type of personality, look, all that kind of thing, which he does. And if they put him with a guy I would love if Paul Heyman came out with him and was like, hey, and then let him do the GTS and do all that crap Punk took from him. and just be like, no, this is the best in the world. But, you know, I don't think he's going to be replacing him. I think they have way too much invested in Daniel Bryan at this point in time to do that. So yeah, I don't. I think he'll wrestle similarly, but they are not going to be put in the same mold.
No, you see, I've questioned this because I think, recently with Daniel Bryan's surgeries, they're obviously going to have to change his moveset. There's a lot of moves in his current moveset that he shouldn't be doing with his neck in the states it is. So, if Kenta's doing the moves that Daniel Bryan can't do, I'm all for that. But if they're going to give him the situation where, they're both doing the same moves, and you're seeing the same wrestler on, basically the same wrestler on a show twice a night, I think it's going to get really dull really quick. I mean, I really enjoy in-ring performance, but as you guys know, I'm more of a story, character-driven guy, while I like Bray Wyatt so much. For me, if they're going to have Kenta, they need to make sure that he's going to be more interesting and have some kind of developed character to him as well. Because I kind of feel at times Daniel Bryan, I can't believe I'm going to say this, I kind of feel Daniel Bryan is lacking character and charisma at times, and that's definitely shown through his promos.
Can we just have him not blow mist in people's faces and not have Asian-sounding music? That's about all I want at this point.
I want both of those things.
Oh, I love Mist, but can he be the guy who doesn't?
I want his hometown to be from the Orient as well.
Oh, the Orient.
I'm calling
the
it
land
now.
of the rising sun.
Guys, I'm calling it now. Kenta is the new Yoshitatsu.
Oh.
No, he's too talented.
Yeah, he's way too talented.
He'll shine through even if he's in a low card position.
I think he'll get over just based on his in-ring ability.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't see much character out of him.
I was going to say I'm interested. I'm interested to see how character development goes with him.
Exactly. That's why I think he really needs a mouthpiece.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing will be to see whether he does speak English or not for this.
Yeah.
He said already that he has no problem trying to learn English for the role, but I think, Sin Cara said he was going to learn English and never did. So
yeah, they need to take their time with him.
Yeah, if they're going to try and get him over, like you said, he should maybe have a mouthpiece to begin with at least.
Mm-hmm.
So a question then, who would you give him as a mouthpiece?
Paulie.
You have like two choices, and one of the choices don't make any sense. So
don't they still have Sakamoto hired, or was he released?
Who?
I think it might seem crazy. I would like to see Albert or Tensai with him, just because obviously he's been in Japan. They'll have a little bit of history there. He could translate for him. He doesn't need to be like out there all the time. But
That's not bad.
It's true, but Tensai is a big, goofy Bostonian, so I don't know. I just feel like it'll be hard to take that dude seriously. But I don't know. He's he's Mr. Yells for Bubbles and stuff.
Yeah.
Bubbles are exciting.
They are.
That's actually how I get through my week from Raw to Ross. Is I just have a bubble machine in my living room.
And you have a recording of Albert yelling bubbles.
Yes, and then I have my video of the plastic bag from American Beauty.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Right, I'll tell you what, someone mentioned last week we had Eugene, and we all decided it was actually a fairly respectful take on a character. Going through, WWE over the years, we've had some fairly disrespectful characters in certain aspects.
Yeah.
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 I want to know, one at a time, guys, which one do you feel is the most disrespectful character we have had? So, Paul, you go first.
Oh, this is an easy one. This is a WCW one, but it was Harlem Heat, their first gimmick when they were Cole and Kane, and they were led to the ring by Colonel Tom Parker in chains. It was basically a slave gimmick.
Wow. Yeah, that is fairly.
Yeah,
fairly.
easily worst, most racist gimmick ever. It only lasted like 2 weeks.
Yeah, I can see why that may have lasted only 2 weeks.
Yeah, even down south, it didn't get over.
But you see, that was just before their time. They were just rocking the chain gang and stuff.
Oh, it was bad. Worst idea ever. I mean, whoever thought of that? I got to think it was probably Bill Watts, but.
Skeletor, what do you think was the most disrespectful gimmick of all time?
It's probably no memory of what he was describing because it only happened for like 2 weeks. Akeem probably.
No,
just
Akeem.
because Akeem was a South Carolinian white dude who then they were like, hey, he's now a stereotypical African American. And they filmed like an empty street with a burning dumpster, and were like, "This is Africa," and that whole segment and everything they had to do with Akeem was really awful, and just
Yeah, the burning dumpster was quite bad, wasn't it?
Because I'm cool with Kamala and stuff like that. Because, well, stereotypical, ridiculous, whatever. Everybody in wrestling practically has a stereotype thing. Freaking Roddy has a Scottish heritage, so he plays the bagpipes and wears a kilt. Like, it's what you do. Whether you're white, black, Asian, Hispanic, Irish, whatever, you have a stereotype gimmick. 85% chance be based on your specific. Like, from Texas was a cowboy at some point in time. Still is. Everyone's a stereotype. It's not like a racism thing. It's everybody. But that's why. Yeah. But it's Akeem. Akeem was different in that it was a white dude who they turned into a stereotypical, African American. It was just the weirdest thing. I don't even know how to describe it. It made no sense.
Cool. Sorry, Chris. Who do you think is the most disrespectful gimmick of all time?
Most disrespectful gimmick of all time goes to Punk with the Undertaker stuff. The stuff with Paul Bearer's urn being thrown around and bounced off the floor and having ashes poured over the Undertaker. Yeah, I've got to go with that.
Yeah, I'll give you that. It's fairly disrespectful. But I mean, as a whole gimmick,
Okay, and as a whole gimmick, Eugene, kind of.
Eugene, kind of. Fair enough.
There were times where you saw Eugene and you thought, how have you gotten away with this?
Part of me wants to say, that I've got two choices for disrespectful gimmick, and one of them was actually Vince McMahon taking the piss out of
JR.
Bell's palsy. I think that was, although people found it humorous, there was a time and place for it. Live on TV is not one of them.
Yeah, I can completely.
Oh, I got another one. Tony Atlas when he was brought back as Saba Simba. That was pretty bad too.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah, because we all remembered him as Mr. USA Tony Atlas. Then he comes back and he's barefoot and he has a spear, and like they just brought him from Africa. It was terrible.
Yeah, man. And see, it's weird because I'm cool with Umaga and Kamala. But the fact that they did that to Tony Atlas, who already had a functional gimmick, just makes me super sad.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was terrible.
I have a quick. Have you guys seen what Punk tweeted?
Which one? The big thank you.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things I love to see from wrestlers when they retire. Like even when the Ultimate Warrior said it at the Hall of Fame induction.
But what did Punk tweet? I haven't been on Twitter.
There's hashtag thank you punk going around, and punks put out no thank you. Thank you for all the help and support throughout the years. Health and happiness above all. Don't ever take any shit from anybody.
You know, I think I agree. I think it's nice to see wrestlers actually being positive when they come out with things.
Yeah, I mean,
It's nice to see guys not just jumping on the chance to go to a shoot promo somewhere.
well, what I loved was the Ultimate Warrior at the Hall of Fame when he said they had "Thank you, Warrior" chants going, and he was like, "No, thank you," and everyone else started chanting, "No, no, no." That's got to be the best Hall of Fame moment ever.
Yeah.
You know, just bouncing back to that disrespectful gimmick, I've got two off the top of my head. JBL at the Mexican border.
No, dude, he was a heel. Like, that was the point. Like,
No, he was, but it was very disrespectful.
no, but they were pointing at that and going, "That's horrible." Like, it's.
Oh no, I agree.
You're not like, you don't watch Star Wars and see him, like, a guy murders, like Darth Vader murder people and go, "Oh, this movie says murdering people is okay."
He had a family. That guy had a family.
Yeah, that guy he choked had a family, and this movie needs to be outlawed. Like, they were pointed at what he was doing and went, "That's horrible," which makes it okay.
Another one is Muhammad Hassan. When he came in with the, I don't want to say terrorist group because they weren't officially terrorists, but it was implied a lot. And it was dropped the minute the incident happened.
Yeah, that gimmick had so much potential, and it was so controversial. And up until right there at the end, it was played so perfectly on that line. And and then they crossed the line right there at the end on a tape show, putting something on there that they shouldn't have. I mean, what did they expect? It was a tape show.
I think the issue with it as well was the fact that it was so close to all the bombing attacks.
Yeah, it was like the same day, right?
Yeah. I mean, even if it was a tape show, they could have cut that out knowing that had happened. But I mean, these things do happen, and they now know, not to fuck with the bombing incident. But I think Muhammad Hassan could have had a great gimmick had it not been disrespectful at the time. I think the one thing WWE's done well at is avoiding anyone mentioning Chris Benoit.
Well, I don't think they should do that.
Oh yeah, he doesn't exist, and rightfully so.
Yeah, he doesn't exist. I don't know who this name you're saying is, but
never heard of Crispin.
Who? See, are you talking about that weird period of time where there were 3 horsemen?
Yep.
I am.
Okay.
And there was 3 of them.
Remember when Shawn Michaels and Triple H had that match for the World Heavyweight title?
And nobody won?
Nobody won, and then Randy Orton, hooked a disembodied leg and got the pin and got the world title. That was a really weird storyline.
Oh well. He's just hanging out back now, so it's fine.
I mean, it's not even that they don't want to, which they don't, and I understand that. They also can't, which is the second thing, because the USA Network would never allow that, even if they wanted to, which they don't. They really don't.
Yeah, like even on the network, you can't search for one of his matches.
Yeah, they're there, but you have to find them yourself.
Yep.
That
said, I can still enjoy his matches.
Yeah, they're so good stuff. But,
yeah.
We've got 5 minutes left. Let's do the usual, and we'll go for our Sandow spot of the week next week. Who is Sandow coming out as next week?
Where is Raw next week?
Yeah, where are they?
Yeah, Miami.
Oh yeah, I knew that. They announced that at the show.
LeBron James.
Yeah.
We get another basketball one, really?
Or Dwayne Sandow.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll be LoWdown and then Flow Rider will beat him up.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, if that happens to him, then I will say for 1 week that he was buried. You do not let a celebrity be top.
Well, if you remember the last time Flow Rider was around, which was like 4 WrestleManias ago, something like that, he showed up and beat up Heath Slater, if you remember. He trash talked him. Heath Slater got mad, and this guy was insulting him for no reason. And then Flow Rider attacked him for being insulted. So.
And yet, Heath Slater, that's the most truth he's ever spoke.
Actually, my prediction for Sandow, I'm going to stick with it, even though we didn't get it. Damien Flair. If we don't get Damien Flair on SmackDown tonight, I'm going to be annoyed.
Well, SmackDown's probably going to be, like, in the vicinity of Virginia. They'll probably... Like,
it's in North Carolina.
Oh, it's in North Carolina? Okay, that's fair. Then, yeah, I could see that.
You know what, I think for Raw next week, I think we might get Dwayne Sandow, and he'll appear via satellite.
Oh, that's way too smart. There's no way that'll happen.
Maybe he'll hold a bit of food-based product placement, and then Adam Rose will insult him for no reason and take it from him.
Look off camera the entire time and insult him. Yeah.
Adam Rose is the worst, and I didn't like him that much initially. I thought he was okay.
I can see why Vince hates him.
And now I just want him gone. I never want to see him again.
I'm with Vince.
I started off as a rosebud, and now I've wilted and soured, and now I'm the biggest fucking lemon going.
Last thing I have to mention, obviously with Sting not appearing last night, when do we think he's going to appear? And my bet is SummerSlam, because it's in California.
October when the game comes out.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he will appear. Like, I think he might just get shoved in the Hall of Fame next year, and that's it.
Apparently, he's actually released an official statement saying he wants a match with The Undertaker.
Say that again?
I'm good.
I pass hard on that. I don't want to see Taker wrestle again, and I don't want to see Sting wrestle again.
Exactly.
Sting's actually said, I've made it clear I'd love to have one last hurrah, one last big match hopefully, and of course I've been outspoken about Undertaker being the opponent.
Like I said in my blog, if you fully believe this match isn't going to happen, when Sting says he's fine to go, and WWE believes he's fine to go, if Taker's ready, this match is happening.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's gonna be unwatchable.
I don't know.
If you put Sting and somebody else, like, who can carry a match, I would be like, alright, I guess. But those are two guys who are super old and can't work anymore.
Yeah, Sting hasn't been able to carry a match since '96.
Yeah.
And even then, it was kind of sketchy.
Sting's been kind of embarrassing himself in TNA for a while.
Yeah.
I would like to learn a lot now. E.g. Joker's thing.
Yeah. But, like, Sting's best years are, like, 15 years ago.
Oh, longer than that.
His watchable years.
Yeah.
If he came over in 2001, it probably could have been solid. Like,
he would have been reinvigorated. He would have had some great guys to work with. Yeah, it would have been nuts. It would have worked.
Yeah, if it came over in that invasion, the invasion storyline would have been twice as good, and Sting would have been great, and you could have had some cool feuds with Sting and WWE guys. With, like, you could have Sting versus Stone Cold. You would have had dream matches happen, but you didn't, and it's kind of over. It's like super over and done with at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up here. Don't forget, this Sunday before Battlegrounds, we're going to have a small pre-show. Basically, we're just going to run a couple of questions, and we're all going to give our predictions for this, so you are more than welcome to join in. Thank you all for joining in tonight. Obviously, you'll follow everyone on Twitter. You've got Lammy332, Follow _ WWE and Y2 Stock.
And listen to the Nitro Cast.
Yeah.
Listen to the Nitrocast.
New episode's up.
Ooh, new episodes. There you go. No reason not to now. Like I said, we've been Levels of Wrestling, guys. Thank you so much for joining. If you've got anything you want to hear us talk about on one of the shows, just leave us a comment down below and we'll sort it all out. Thanks a lot, guys, and good night.
See ya.
See ya.